welcome to the Wheel of Prog!
Cool. So welcome everybody to another episode of Wheel of Prog. You may notice we have a very special guest here. I mean, this is the Prog King right here, the editor of Prog Magazine, purveyor of all important progressive music, Mr. Jerry Ewing. Jerry, good to have you here, man.
Thank you very much. Very kind intro, I must say. Delighted to join you guys.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun. We have Nick, we have Geoff. We haven't done one of these. By the time this airs, we're recording this in December before the holidays, so this is going to air after the new year. But it's a great way to kick off, this next year of whatever's to come. And we've been trying to figure out a way to do. Obviously, we were always going to do a Genesis Wheel of Prog because it's such an important band and their discography is insanely great. But we wanted somebody really special to join and have some fun with us. And we've never had you on the podcast. So this is awesome. We're really thrilled that you're here to do it with us.
Yeah, delighted to be here.
Yeah. And hopefully it won't ruin our relationship. I just want to say, when we started the Prog Report back in 2013, there wasn't, obviously you had already been doing Prog Magazine, and we were very much looking up at that going, there's nothing here in the US that is doing anything like this. And it was just a way it was really for me to just write some reviews and share with my friends. And it just ballooned into what it is, which has been crazy. But, you were always really gracious with it and very early on invited me to write some articles and do some US stuff. And I always appreciated that and reporting on the edge from here. So I just wanted to thank you for that. It was always really nice.
Absolute pleasure. I mean, we work on the basis that the more the merrier, and we're all working towards the same goal, and that is to sort of promote the music as much as we can, especially the up and coming newer stuff,
Yeah, absolutely. What's the latest with Prog Magazine these days? How long have you been there now? How long has it been running?
I believe we are going to hit we're going to hit 150th issue.
Wow.
Next year. So
that's wild. Amazing.
Started in 2009.
Wow.
So it will be 15 years. So yeah.
I mean, you have to be amazed. Did you imagine it would have been lasted that long being that it was prog music?
I don't know. Well, I mean, we had people saying that last one issue,
right.
Back at the time. Unfortunately, in the world of print journalism, I've seen a load of big name music mags fall by the wayside since we've been going, which I think, I'm not talking about competitiveness. I think that's sad. I appreciate times have changed, even from 2009 when we launched Prog Magazine. People have far more things to occupy their time, and the way they access music is drastically different. And I guess we are kind of old school because we are, at heart, still a print magazine. Obviously, we're a website. We've got the social media stuff that we have to do as well. But then again, I guess, if one magazine is going to stand firm against the tide of digital, it's going to be a magazine about progressive rock.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, listen, it's the audience that still buys music.
Right.
How non-digital is that? Mine are. I have every one. They're in binders. It's the full experience.
I'm honoured, Geoff. I'm honoured. That's quite.
I've also got everyone, Jerry, but I'm not like Geoff. They're not in binders. They're in those black boxes that you guys gave away as sort of spine boxes. Remember? Those?
All right. Yeah.
Yeah, they're all lined up, filling up my garage and my room and my study.
We have a vault in the office where we don't go very often because most of we all work from home. Since the pandemic, we found it was a lot easier to work that way. There is a vault at work. It's a bit like going into some dusty magician's cave. It's like, there they all are,
That's my upstairs landing. Much to the protest of my wife, but I actually there is a guy who has a spreadsheet.
There's more than one.
Is that right? Yeah.
Someone sent me a spreadsheet. Mike from Progzilla Radio sent me a spreadsheet last week.
Right.
We were very much aware that there was a spreadsheet doing the rounds on Facebook of going back to the covered CD days. Someone had listed everything.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
We're aware of spreadsheets. We know.
It's great.
So with the spreadsheet it has who's on the cover, who's in every issue.
No, it's like
kind of
way more deep. Well, the one that the guy sent me is like it's got basically every review.
Wow.
Most
where
of
you
the
can
articles.
find really anything. That's amazing.
That sounds like it would put even our own index that we work off on the magazine.
That's amazing. All right, so again, let's go ahead and bring up the. Let me get over here and set this up here. We'll bring up the wheel. There you go. So we got 15 studio albums and a wild card. We threw in the wild card so that way we each get 4 spins. The wild card will be, you can just go in and move an album wherever you want, which we'll see how that. There's been cases where no one wanted to use it. So anyway, why don't we just go in the order that's on the screen there? I'll go first, then Nick, Geoff, and Jerry. You can having last, you can then really shape how this thing turns out at the end, which is a lot of power. So there you go. All right, let me go ahead and give this thing a spin here. Oh man, this is going to be a fun, interesting one. Oh wow, right off the bat.
Oh, right off the bat.
All right, Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. Okay, so I mean, of course, this album is amazing. Maybe the best concept album of all time. It's at least one of that, and maybe The Wall, I would argue, for me, or 1 and 2. It's tough. I'm trying to think of what else would be an S tier. It's either S or A for sure. I think most people would agree. Okay, I'm gonna start off a little easy. I'm gonna maybe against all expectation. I'm gonna put this in A for now.
Really,
it can be moved up. The only reason I'm gonna say there's a couple of tracks that are sort of the more noisier ones that are kind of just that are sort of things I tend to skip through when those happen on albums. But I love this album. It's amazing. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody moves this up to S. So I'm just leaving it in A for now to just sort of give us some wiggle room. If that works.
It's going to go up to S just because of Fly on the Windshield. I'll tell you right now.
Oh, Roie, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Jerry, what say you?
Well, I agree with you. Funnily enough, that I think it's a great album, but I'm not one of those. I'm a Genesis fan. Full stop. I mean, I look at all those albums down there, and there's 1 or 2 perhaps I'm not massively keen on.
Right.
I still stuff on them I really like. I look at Lamb, and it was a bold statement, and I'm one of those Genesis fans that thinks there's some absolutely amazing stuff on there, but it doesn't completely work for me.
Yeah. Okay. See, we're right and you guys are wrong. So there you go.
Wow.
I got to see the musical box do it live for the first time this year, which was a real.
They do
real
it awesome. Yeah, I've seen that too.
Really
it's amazing. Yeah, the whole costumes, it's just awesome.
Yeah.
All right, Nick. Let's see what you got.
Roie? What you got, buddy? Be kind.
Well, you're certainly not going to get any bad albums on this wheel. Okay, now the Wind and Wuthering.
Wind and Wuthering.
This one gets interesting.
Okay, I always felt this was an underrated album. Now, we all know that at the helm were Banks and Gabriel to begin with, but this was kind of with Trick of the Tail. Those two together were Rutherford and certainly Hackett, and taking the reins, and I think it's a good continuation from Trick of the Tail. I always kind of felt that the album got a bad rap just because of when it came in their history, if you know what I mean. Trick of the Tail was so legendary, and it made such a statement that Wind and Wuthering was always going to struggle to keep up with it, in my opinion. But I mean, if you look at the songs on it, One for the Vine, 11th Earl of Mar, Your Own Special Way, Afterglow, these are great songs. They really are great songs, and I think that this album deserves better recognition than it received. So I'm actually going to put it in A tier.
Really?
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's it just compared to
amazing.
other stuff, I don't know if it lasts an A, you know? It's awesome. And Afterglow is, I don't know, top 10 song for me by them. But I don't know if I agree with A. That might be a little high. But I don't know, Geoff, where would you put it?
I would put it sort of, and it would be in my bottom half, certainly. It might make it into B. You know, I think for me, it's just probably comparing it to Trick of the Tail. It's quite a bit behind Trick of the Tail for me. I don't like that song. I don't like that song about the mouse.
It's a B for me. I mean, you know, like Roy said, Afterglow is just majestic. One for the Vine, 11th Earl of Mar, terrific. I don't know why it doesn't have quite the impact for me that Trick does, because they're both terrific records.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the thing about this is you can probably actually get all the way down to perhaps even D, and you're still talking about good albums here.
Yeah.
Right. You know, so it's kind of relative. But I think because Trick surprised people that they could do it without Peter, and they could do it really well, and they didn't change a huge amount. It perhaps, and because this, again, you know, 2 albums in 1 year, both came out in 76. Perhaps just lessens the impact slightly that Wind and Wuthering has.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know why it isn't considered. Sometimes it's even not mentioned. It's like forgotten.
Right. It's like the forgotten record. Yeah?
Documentary left it out completely.
Who is that?
The people that made the Sum of the Parts documentary left it out completely.
There you go. Exactly.
Shame on them.
Well, that documentary, that was a mess all over the place.
Well, I mean, I was lucky enough to go to the screening where obviously all 5 of them were there, which is the first time that the 5 were sort of seen in public for years. And I remember we watched it, and everyone in the audience is going like, well, hang on, where was Wind and Wuthering? Apart from the hugely embarrassing thing of like, what about Steve's solo career?
Yeah.
that was the thing for me. Like, he's gone on and done he's carrying the Genesis name for a decade. They don't mention it.
It was not, I can tell you, it was not like popular myth believes anything to do with Tony and Mike. It was people who made the documentary and they found out too late. I mean, I was at the after show party with the screening. Peter Gabriel walked straight up to Steve and gave him a massive hug.
Oh, really?
Wow.
As if to say,
that's cool. I didn't know. That's awesome. Yeah.
And Tony Smith, the manager, who I know very well, was furious. And he's not a man. He's not a man to anger, I can tell you.
I'm sure.
That's right. No, that's good to know, actually, because I watching that, I was like, oh my God, they're really doing him dirty. You know, it just was like,
and the perception was that the band had done it deliberately, but it was an independent filmmaker. So by the time they saw the final cut, it was too late because things were already, you know, it was redressed, I think, in the extras and stuff when it came out on Blu-ray, but obviously damage was done by them.
Yeah, fair enough. Cool. All right, Geoff, you're up.
Okay, let's see what we get.
It's the self-titled Shapes album. Okay, let's see where you put this one, because I have a feeling
Controversy reigns.
this was probably the toughest one for me to place because my first experience of owning a Genesis album was buying Three Sides Live. So this was the one that came after it. So it was the first new Genesis album that I got. And I really enjoyed it incredibly at the time. Probably, I think it's an album of two halves. I think side one is absolutely flawless.
Agreed.
Side two's got Silver Rainbow on it, which I really liked at the time. But it's
I love that song.
I still like it. It's Illegal Alien's the one that sticks for me.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Silver Rainbow's
me too.
favorite.
Me too, Jerry.
So in my list, and I think I am going to stick to it, but it's going to be, we've been very boring so far, but at least it helps with what happens next. I'm going to put it as an A for me.
What?
Wow.
Right.
That's fairly high. Okay.
Brave.
I don't necessarily disagree. I love this album. Again, like you, this was my first Genesis album maybe I heard. I was young at the time, and I thought it was amazing. I wasn't aware of the Gabriel stuff until years later, really. Right after this was Invisible Touch and blah, blah. That was my period in the beginning. But I still love Mama, Home by the Sea, the whole. Again, Illegal Alien over the years has gotten cringeworthy. It's so bad.
I can assure you, it was cringeworthy at the time.
It's just an awful song. Really.
Yeah, but really, the rest of the album, even the ballads, I just think they're well done and original sounding, and it's great.
I think I kind of agree with Geoff that side one is flawless, especially Mama and Home by the Sea. Those two pieces are just huge. Still to this day, Home by the Sea at the reunion show was,
really great. Yeah.
And second Home by the Sea. Yeah.
Well, I mean, when I say Home by the Sea, I'm kind of referring to the whole piece.
Yeah,
it's a Genesis song I still listen to a hell of a lot today. I love it. I just love it. The emotions, the musicality. It's superb. Second side, apart from Illegal Alien, I think there are some good songs, but just don't quite have the impact that Mama and Home by the Sea have.
No, I think that's fair.
I think
Silver Rainbow, though, I do disagree with you, Geoff. That was like the coolest song on side two for me, I think.
I do like it. I just know that when you read, a lot of Genesis fans hate it. The other thing that, when something happens and it ruins it for you, I think there's one of the documentaries about maybe the 2017 reunion tour where Phil goes into a rant about being made to sing about sheets of double glazing. Which every time I hear that bit of Home by the Sea, I kind of, I think, imagine singing that on stage every night.
he takes a lot of the blame for that side too. I mean, there he is, one of the best drummers in the world, and he's using a drum machine half the time. I just don't get it. So you guys are right about that.
You like the rhythm. All right. So I mean, already level A is not remotely close to what I thought it was going to be, which is amazing. All right, Jerry, you're up. Let's see what we got. Oh,
he's going to get right.
There it is. There it is.
Calling all stations.
Right. Not as bad as people will have you believe.
Yeah.
I mean, you have your different tiers of Genesis fans, don't you? You've got I only like the Gabriel area. You've got they were rubbish after Hackett left, and then you've got the people that like the Phil era, or people that go all the way. And then you've got this, and I thought it was a very brave attempt. I don't think it completely works all the way through, but there's some great stuff. I like the fact that they went a bit heavier, they sort of darker sounding. There are some absolutely appalling fade outs on the album. somebody, should be sacked for them. They were, absolutely shocking.
Congo, you're referring to
yeah.
Congo?
Yeah, that's one of them.
Yeah.
And I thought Roie had a good voice, has a good voice. And I thought, I saw them live with Roie. You felt it wasn't going to carry on, but I'm one of those people who wishes that they'd made a second record, because I'd love to have seen. There was enough on this for me to think there was life in Genesis, and it would be fascinating to see where they would have gone had they made a second record. It's not a B, but it's not a D. I'm sticking it in C.
Wow. Okay.
Okay. Interesting.
Very cool.
Yeah, I saw the only time that I have seen Genesis. Well, the only time they've come to Ireland, certainly in my time as a fan, was on that tour, and that was a brilliant show. Like, it was as a Genesis fan, it just had, most of what I would have wanted to see.
Yeah.
And Roie was brilliant, and it kind of the Anto Drennan and guitar and Nursery and drums. It changed the whole sound. Chester and Daryl, great, brilliant. But it was something different, and I'm totally like you, Jerry. I would have loved those or 3 or 4 of them to have gone into the studio and made another album, and I think it really could have been something great, but obviously they didn't want to.
The interesting thing you say there, Geoff, is that it was something different and something new. We're talking about prog here, and a lot of Genesis fans don't want something different. They don't want something new. I think that was the problem. What they actually delivered was really good. It didn't, Yeah.
I actually really enjoyed it. I still like it to this day. I agree. There's some songs that are hit or miss on it, but I mean, the opening track is amazing.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's awesome. And you know what? It turned me on to Ray Wilson, who I am a huge fan of. I have all his albums that he's done after that, and I think he's great. Just one of the best voices around. He does this weird thing where he tours now and he plays all these. What do you think of that? That when he tours now, he plays a bunch of Genesis stuff, which I guess is fair play because he was in the band, however you want to look at it. But he also plays solo stuff from Phil and Peter, which I always think is interesting by him to do.
Interesting, yeah. I mean, I funnily enough, I met Roie. I went to see Stiltskin play live.
Oh, wow.
And and way before there was even, you had no idea that this guy I was seeing was going to end up on arena stages with Genesis. It was. I mean, they were a lot more energetic than Genesis were, and he was. He was a totally different kind of frontman for them than the one we saw with Genesis. So.
Yeah. No, but he's great, and if anybody hasn't checked out some of his solo albums, I mean, they're very good. Not too proggy, more rockish, but just solid stuff.
And of course, it has to be said that the great Nick DiVigilio makes an appearance on the album.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, back to me. Wow, it's already crazy, the rankings. Okay. Abacab.
Yeah.
I sort of feel the same way about this album, I think, as you felt about the self-titled. I like everything through, like, the first 4 songs and then Dodo on, side 2. And then after that, it sort of really tails off for me. I really wish they would have left You Might Recall on the record, which I think would have been maybe the best song on the album had they kept it, or maybe the second best song on the album had they kept it. I love Abacab. I still wish they would have played it on the reunion tour. That song I still think rocks live. For whatever reason, I don't know if Phil hates the record or something. I understand. But No Reply at All is great. Me and Sarah Jane is great. Keep It Dark is really cool. But yeah, I don't know. It's sort of a weird transitional record. I think most people agree. Some people really love it. Some people think it's them really throwing prog out the window.
It's not. It's not. I think the problem is the production sound. It was too much of a change.
Yeah. I agree.
Like Geoff,
I'm gonna
like
put it
Geoff,
in. I'm gonna go C though with this one. I think.
right? Like
Yeah.
Geoff, the first Genesis album I actually bought was Three Sides Live. So
Really?
yeah, so that served as my intro to a band that I was aware of, but it also had over here in the UK, it had a side of music that made me want to dig deeper. For certainly Fountain of Salmacis, which just blew my mind.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know.
The Abacab stuff on Three Sides Live sounds absolutely amazing.
Right.
Right?
Mm.
Abacab, Dodo, Lurker, me and Sarah Jane.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like, this is great. Because it's got that kind of dark heaviness that they kind of recaptured on Calling All Stations in a way.
Yeah.
And
Jerry, was it in your magazine or somewhere else that I read that possibly the worst song ever done by Genesis was "Who Done It"? Would you agree?
Oh, I didn't even mention that. Yeah.
I don't think it's a great song. I don't think I would have said that, but it's certainly not one of my favourites. It's certainly one of the songs that drags Abacab down. Like Roy, I'm a huge fan of me and Sarah Jane, but I know a lot of Genesis fans can't stand that.
The ending of it is brilliant.
It's one of the weirder, kind of more interesting songs, I think, in a way. But yeah, okay. C, we're good with C, I think. See where this goes. All right, Nick.
Oh,
okay, here we go.
bless you.
Nursery Crime.
Nursery Crime. Okay. Well, this, of course, was the album in which Collins and Hackett joined the band, which makes it very, very important historically. It's a significant album for that reason alone. And look, I mean, Anthony Phillips was a fantastic musician, but we'd be lying if we didn't say that these two guys lifted it up to a new level. They really did. It's essentially three long prog songs, a little bit of filler here and there. And whilst it's by no means the best Genesis album, for 1971 the production was fantastic. Prog was happening in a big way. It was the Genesis, pardon the pun, of the whole prog movement. And so, for that reason alone, as an important album, I don't love it. I don't think it's anywhere near, for example, Sailing England, but it's important. So, for that reason, I'm not gonna give it a C as one would probably expect. I'm gonna give it a B.
Yeah, I think that's cool. I mean, just for musical box, I think you can't rank it lower than that.
Sure.
That's the top 5 Genesis song.
I would definitely be the same on that one for sure.
A C? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, a B.
A B. Yeah, I think that's
It's in the
like
middle.
I said, musical box alone, it makes it worth that.
I mean, those two guys were to go on to do immense things, but this was just the start of it. They hadn't quite developed to that yet.
Fair. Cool. Moving on.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Okay, spin it.
I don't have. Oh, I might have the. I might have the sound. All right, Trespass.
So, Trespass.
Just for the record, something's gonna have to go in D. We do understand that, right?
Yeah. Look. I mean, I'll.
And we all know what. We'll know what.
These are all great albums. I mean, Trespass for me would be a D, for sure. And you're doing that to the album that has Stagnation, Looking for Someone, and The Knife on it, all of which for a kind of first album proper are really brilliant prog songs. To what Nick said earlier on, definitely lacks something without Phil. The drumming is not, as good as it became. I think, and I would say probably the same about From Genesis to Revelation. These guys were finding their way in terms of songwriting, but they were doing an incredible job, and not just writing stuff that sounded exactly like everything that was out there. But I think in the grand scheme of things, it's a good indicator of things to come. It's probably good. It's probably as good as it gets for that album for me.
Completely agree with you, Geoff. Everything you said.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, it's them starting out. When you compare it to the rest of the records, I think it's just sort of by default has to go in D. But yeah, it's some really good stuff on it.
Already there are going to be people watching this doing their nut because you've got the self-titled album now with Abacab in C.
Right.
We've stuck Trespass in D.
That's right.
My hate mail is arriving already.
Yes, I know. The comments are going to be, how dare you guys? Don't you know anything?
Yeah, we've always got the wheel to blame it on, though, so we're okay.
Yeah.
On the wheel.
Yeah, it's amazing. No, I think you're right on with that one. All right, cool. All right, let's see. Jerry, up. There we go. Trick of the Tail.
Oh,
There you go.
right.
Right.
Interesting.
Don't let us down, Jerry.
So I can't. Can I move someone else's?
So yes, so now that A is full with 3, because 3 is the limit that we put on each row here. If you did want to put this one in A, you can move something in A down to B,
or something up.
Yeah, you can.
or you can move it up to. You can move something from A up to S.
But only one.
You could move the lamp up, Jerry, if you wanted to.
I am going to. It's going in A.
Okay.
And I think probably going to have to move the self-titled album down.
Fair enough. Yeah. I can live with that.
It was between that and Wind, but I guess Wind is a better album overall. I mean, by a long shot. So I think for me, the self-titled album should nestle below Trick. We've already talked about it when we were talking about Wind and Wuthering. I mean, it's just. There isn't a bad song on this record. It's a punchy record. It's an enigmatic record. It's got charisma. It was on charisma.
See what you did there.
And it I mean, up against it, it was. It proved that that there was a much stronger band within that Genesis framework than I suspect a lot of people realised. Because it was really only by the 1970s that sort of late 60s and into the 70s where someone leaves a band is a huge deal. It didn't really, pre-67, that wasn't really much of a thing. You got that. But when you get people start to invest in bands and they see sort of longevity, and at this point, longevity is like 5 years.
Yeah.
Right.
How, they can't cope. That's the lead singer, And also people have this misguided thing that because he's a singer, he does everything, And whereas obviously Peter brought a hell of a lot to Genesis, I think the interesting thing here is that the 4 of them proved that they could do it just as well without him. I mean, I know there are people that are going to go, hasn't got Gabriel on it, it's rubbish, but, they're wrong, unfortunately.
Yeah, they are wrong. I mean, think about the Melody Maker headline that came out when Gabriel left. Genesis are dead. That's what it said. And boy, were they not dead. This album proved all the naysayers wrong. And if you ask me, this is their second best work. But that's just me.
Wow.
A lot of people think it's right up there. I mean, I think for many people, it's the peak of Genesis with Phil singing. Right, this is maybe the best album with Phil singing, unless you're a pop fan or whatever. But I mean, this Squonk is a favorite. Dancing on a Volcano, Entangled. I mean, the songs here are just amazing.
Los Endos. Wow,
just awesome stuff.
I was going to say it at the time of Wind and Wuthering, but I'll say it here as well. I think what's been brilliant in the last 10, 15 years is how kind of Steve Hackett has, rehabilitated, these songs back into the live arena. Not that, for Genesis fans, they never disappeared, but, I think something like Blood on the Rooftops, which the band themselves never really played that live pretty much after these albums, being able to go to the show and hear that stuff live in 2022, 23, is brilliant. So hats off to Steve for keeping the flame.
I just want to say, folks, that we've done Trick of the Tail and we've still got nothing in S tier. Something wrong here.
Yeah, I mean,
Wow,
we're all
spin
being
that
very
wheel.
careful about what to put in S tier. All right. Wait. So Jerry, that was you, right? So I'm
Yeah.
up. Okay.
That's you.
Okay.
Just don't let Roie loose an S tier. I'll go horribly wrong.
It's all going to go pop.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Oh.
There it is.
All right. I think we're gonna take care of that problem right now.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, this is going straight in S. I'm glad that I got it to put it there. To me, this is.
The album
It's hard
name.
to
The
say it's
album
their
name
best
is
album.
Foxtrot.
It's hard. Foxtrot. I'm sorry. You're right. It's hard to say that this one album is the best Genesis album. I know that there's disagreements among many albums, which is a unique thing for a band to have. But for me, this is their best album. I mean, you have Watcher of the Skies and Supper's Ready. You could just have those two songs on the album and it would be S tier. But everything on here is great. Can Utility, a Coastliner is just a weird, obscure throwaway song that's amazing. That for anybody would be the band's best song. So it's groundbreaking. The costume, the fox head, the whole thing they were doing at that time was just next level. And again, Supper's Ready. I don't know. Is it? It still maybe is the best song ever written. I don't know.
Well, if
That's
it is,
where I am
I'd
with
like
it.
to know what it is, because
Yeah. So
I find Supper's Ready still a hugely emotional experience to listen to. Still,
Yeah.
I mean, and Christ, when did I first hear it? I first heard it in the 80s, 90s. 40 years down the line, and it can still move me in a big way.
Yeah.
I mean, watching Steve's band play it live, and when he does the extra solo and the whole thing at the end, it's such an experience every time. I've seen him do it 10 times, and it is the greatest thing ever. And I just wish I could have seen the 70s band live back in the day playing it. That's just such a unfortunate thing. I was born too late.
When we asked Steve to play at the Prog Awards in the second year, when we decided to have some live music after we'd done it 1 year, and then maybe this would work, that would work. We thought that getting him and Amanda to do Ripples would be a great idea, and they said, "Oh well, is there anything else?" And I said, "Well, hang on, why don't you play Horizons and open with that, and then Amanda can come up and join you." Oh man, Horizons. That, because what it's setting you up for.
Right.
Steve's a phenomenal guitar player, be it, doing his hammer-ons, playing those wonderfully fluid solos, or playing acoustic and classical leaning acoustic as well,
As a young drummer, I'll never forget hearing that Mellotron intro to Watcher of the Skies. That kind of Morse code rhythm that he plays on the hi-hats. I'd never heard anything like that before. It was totally new, broke new ground.
That's still to this day, that drum beat. I mean, it's so unique, and so they weren't doing typical things ever at that time, and just the rhythm that Phil is playing on that song is so awesome. It's so different.
Just amazing.
I remember reading something. It was a very Tony Banks thing where he sort of said, the Mellotron, there are really only two chords that sounded good on a Mellotron, so that's what I based it around. It's like, it's such a kind of, his kind of, I don't know how you would describe his personality. It was like, no, there are really only two chords, but I made it around those. Yeah,
amazing. All right, great. We're starting to fill it in. No.
Who's up?
Nick, what do you got? Nick? Okay, well,
Okay.
the very, very
From
first album, From Genesis to Revelation.
from Genesis to Revelation. Okay, it was only 1969, but it was the birth of prog. And I'm sorry, folks, don't shoot the messenger. This is not a prog album. It just isn't. I mean,
Well,
I don't even own.
there will be quite a few people watching this that will tell you half of what we really put in aren't prog albums as well.
That's right.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true enough. That's true enough. But look, I mean, these guys were youngsters. They were just starting out. I know, but it's more of a folk pop album than anything else. And frankly, no disrespect, not a very good one. So much greater things to come. It's a kind of interesting artifact, I suppose. And so any Genesis fan is going to want it in their collection, but actually it's hard to get. I tried to find a copy of it to listen for this review because I haven't heard it in.
Being reissued next year.
Oh, is it? Is it? Okay. Well,
There you go.
I'm sure no one's going to buy it.
Wrong. Are we fair to assume you're putting this in D then?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, maybe it'll benefit from a remaster. I don't know, Jerry. Maybe it'll sound better next year. But for now, it belongs in D tier. I'm afraid.
I think it's coming out with a lot of extra stuff.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that'd be cool to have. You know, go ahead, Geoff.
There was a version a few years ago, I think, came out. I don't know that it was entirely. I don't know what the rights are around it, but you know, the thing you have to remember about this album as well, and I wouldn't put it anywhere different in the ranking, but this was an album that a bunch of schoolboys made on their summer holidays.
Right.
You know, now I know now today every 14-year-old kid can use GarageBand, you know, but going in and again, you know, what was there? The songwriting was there. Yeah, they weren't writing Supper's Ready, but they were, you know, there's some, you know, part of the intention was to write songs that other people might cover, you know, and there's good songs in there. And the other thing is Peter Gabriel's voice. And
Yeah.
Roie and I were talking earlier today about I.O., you know, Gabriel's latest album and how amazing it is. You know, this is a guy who sounded that brilliant as a teenage kid and still sounds even more amazing today, you know. So
I think you can really hear the Sam Cooke influence on this more than perhaps the later Genesis material, because obviously, you know, in his early days, Peter loved that sort of soul music sound. That's what inspired him. Look, every great band has to start somewhere, and this is not a bad start, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot more to every album.
It sounds a lot like, I don't know, that psychedelic era, almost Mamas and the Papas, Hollies kind of. There's a lot of stuff, you know, acoustic-y kind of stuff like that on this record.
They took that pastoral thing, and that built largely into Trespass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
Oh, an interesting selection left. So we have got what?
There's some weird, interesting ones that I mean, here you go. Invisible Touch.
I was
this is such a weird. What a weird record this is to rank among these albums. Okay, go ahead.
I'm checking my notes here. Okay. Look, you know, what can I say about Invisible Touch that hasn't already been said? You know, it took them to a level, probably, you know, off the back of some major solo success, that, you know, suddenly this was a band that was filling Wembley Stadium, you know, for multiple nights, you know. But the thing about it is they didn't, you know, they continued on their trajectory, in my opinion. You know, they didn't radically reinvent themselves. And there's still a lot of, to me, there's still a lot of prog in this album. And I like it. There's a lot of pop in it, but then back to what we just said, there was pop in From Genesis to Revelation. You know, it wasn't that they kind of totally reinvented themselves. it's got two brilliant long tracks, Tonight, 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 and Domino.
Yep.
You know, fantastic songs. You know, it's got a crazy instrumental that it ends with a Brazilian. You know, that's not a Phil Collins pop song in any way. I think Land of Confusion, you know, they did a bit of a edgy political thing without being too cringeworthy. You know, it's an album that I still like. It doesn't offend me. I don't mind listening to it. It's probably a B tier for me.
Wow.
I in my world, I would probably have uh, self-titled one above it, because I think out of that back half, it's probably my favorite. But I'm happy to put it alongside that in B. I've surprised Roie, right?
I thought you might go in C. I thought, depending on who got it, it might go in D. So it's sort of a weird. Like I said, it's an album that is easily and arguably their most famous album, right? But
Yeah.
you have a good portion of the audience that thinks it's also their worst, which is the weirdest thing for an album to exist in both of those universes.
Not necessarily, because I suspect that a lot of the hatred comes its way purely by the fact that it was so successful.
Right.
And, you know, that goes against the mindset of the hardcore fan.
Yeah.
It had pop singles. Where have you actually listened to them? No, but they were pop singles. It's that kind of mentality. And I think, you know, I saw him at Wembley Stadium on this tour. It was fantastic. I still listen to the album. I don't quite get the hate. I probably wouldn't put it as high as B, but I really don't get the well, I know why people hate it, but I just don't think that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it suffered a lot from the fact that people wanted another Trespass, you know, and the true Genesis fans.
They
just heard,
they had made one of those for 15 years by that point, but you know.
Exactly, but you know, the very name of the album, Invisible Touch, it sounds poppy. I mean, you almost don't want to like it. You're almost prejudiced towards it before you listen to the thing. You know?
Also,
but can I tell you?
Possibly,
Sorry, go ahead.
the haters come down on it through Phil's sheer ubiquity at the time. He was everywhere.
Sure.
That too.
You know, I mean,
Yeah.
and you know, apart from the first solo album, I'm no major fan of Phil's solo career by a long shot. I think he's an absolutely amazing drummer. You know, really, really good drummer. I like his voice. I like a lot of the Genesis stuff he did. But even I was getting a bit tired of seeing him bloody everywhere at that point. I don't know if the comedy show about the spoof Genesis band ever made it to America, Roie.
No,
only with me sharing it to
them. There is one clip in that had me fall off the chair with laughter, where they had Phil talking about playing with Zeppelin at Live Aid, right? And they've got the Stairway to Heaven intro, and just at the point where the drums would come in, they put in the old from In the Air Tonight.
Gated Toms,
and it was just the funniest thing, because it really kind of summed up. You know, he was bloody everywhere, and even you know, the most famous song in rock, and he didn't. I mean, it didn't really happen, but it was all a joke, and it was just. I mean, and that kind of just sums up. I think that didn't help Genesis's cause at the time.
No, totally.
I think the other thing to remember about it is, you know, that, and I remember at the time, it was before the album came out. I think it was Whistle Test did a sort of a in the studio with them, and it sort of showed how they, you know, just sat and improvised around things, you know, and put it together. And I think there was maybe a clip that they showed like before even the album came out of Tonight, 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 and I remember watching that at the time, going, "This song's going to be brilliant," you know, and it was even before like there were proper lyrics and stuff to it. And like I think those songs there's still that brilliant kind of creativity going on within the album. You know, it's not just coasting and making the same thing over and over again. So
You know what? I was 10 or 11 at the time, and I loved loved that album and that song at that age. I mean, you can imagine it was the biggest thing going, and I remember begging my mom to buy me the record at the records. Like I remember that, and it's just funny how over the years your tastes mature and change, and you discover what the band did before and all that stuff, and then I just think where you discovered the band and where you discovered this album plays so much into it. I mean, I just can't imagine, for example, Dream Theater making this out. Like, I just, you know what I'm saying? It seems insane that they pulled that off. It's crazy. And it worked, Anywho.
Cool.
Well, we'll see if that lasts because I don't know. There's weird records left here.
Who's up?
Jerry.
Who did Jerry, right? Yeah.
I did Invisible Touch.
Okay. And then there were 3.
I was kind of hoping
another interesting one.
I was hoping that was going to nudge over to Duke, but no. And then there were 3. Ooh. It's a weird one, isn't it? Because it's not a bad record by a long shot, but it gets overlooked. You know, and I don't think perhaps even the fact that Follow You, Follow Me was a hit, and therefore the anti-hit brigade weren't too down on it. I don't recall, and it's got some great songs on it, but I just think that they haven't found their feet as a trio. You know, it's their first album as a trio, not the way they would with the next album. You know, I listened to it again actually the other week, and really enjoyed listening to it. I'm like, oh, actually, but there's so much great stuff in the Genesis canon of work that this is going in C.
Okay.
Correct.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's fair.
Yeah.
I was going to say I didn't feel like it was a D, but
Not,
yeah, C sounds about right. I mean, just Down and Out and Deep in the Motherlode are amazing songs, and some of the ballads, Many Too Many, Undertow. What's another one? Say It's All Right, Joe is kind of cool. There's a lot of good stuff on it. Nothing that's mind blowing is the thing, right? Nothing. There's no Supper's Ready or Afterglow or Home by the Sea on it, but yeah, I like this record a lot.
You know,
Jerry talked.
Go ahead, Geoff.
After you.
Well, I was just going to say that, you know, as much as the loss of Gabriel hurt the band, they recovered. But for me, I don't think they ever quite recovered from the loss of Hackett. I've got to say.
Oh, I think they found their feet without Steve, but I think and that's no disrespect to Steve in any way whatsoever. He's but this is the awkward album where they're just not getting it right. I think they're not doing it wrong, but having got it right so many times, and then how they would get it right again. This is just that sort of little blip.
Yeah. Interesting. If you wonder if Steve was there, what that would have added to a record like this, or later on. I think largely the 12-string guitar, the classical guitar, all the acoustic stuff just disappeared from what they were doing once he left.
I think that Jerry said earlier on about the Abacab songs having much more kind of punch and bite on Three Sides Live. There was I'm sure Jerry knows, there was one of the 70, I think it was maybe Nebworth 78 show that Tommy Vance used to broadcast about every fortnight. Like hearing that some of those songs played live with Daryl Sturmer covering some of the guitar parts. And some of it's on the BBC broadcast box set that came out the other year. I think a lot of it came to life a bit more in a live arena than it does in the studio.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We're down to the last 4 spins here. Oh, is it going to give me? Oh. We Can't Dance.
There it is.
All right. Well, seeing as how this is all laid out, I wasn't really sure where I was going to put this record because I'm not sure sometimes how I feel about it because I don't hate it, but I don't. The way this is shaking out, I don't feel it goes anywhere other than D, frankly. And I'm not. I might have been okay with C also, but it's not a great album. You know, I mean, Fading Lights is good. No Son of Mine, I like a lot. What's the third song? The long one. I forget
Driving
the
the
name
Last Spike.
Driving the Last Spike is that's okay. It's sort of long for the sake of being long. You know, and then maybe there's 2 more songs that I can sort of stomach on it. Live Forever is kind of cool. But the rest I just don't really connect with at all. The whole second half of it is almost like a bad Mike and the Mechanics album to me.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I Can't Dance. I just about vomited my lunch when I first heard that song.
And the video, man. How about the video?
It's just an abomination of a track to me. And so yeah, I don't know. That's where I am with it.
For
Correct.
a brief period, this is where Genesis and I parted ways. But having listened to it since, there's bits I like. But I'm kind of with you, Roy. You know, there's a lot here that I just don't like. They only played a snippet of it. I'm kind of glad in a way because I'd have probably been a blubbing wreck. Fading Lights, which is the track. It's a beautiful, beautiful piece of music. You know, and knowing that I was seeing them, they were going to play one more gig after I saw them at the O2. I don't think I'd have been able to hold it together because, as it was a hugely emotional experience. Fortunately, they only played a couple of minutes of it, not the whole thing, but it was still a poignant moment. But I Can't Dance. Not as bad as Jesus, He Knows Me, I suppose, but where I was looking, and I don't want to knock Phil because, you know, I don't dislike any of the guys in Genesis. Well, in fact, for a band as established and with such a long career, they're actually 5 of the nicest guys you could meet. You know,
that's cool.
But I think it's the 90s. I think it's like we've had 10 years of Phil being everywhere by this point, and I'm just like, I kind of like, I can't take any more.
So I've a theory about this. I have a theory about this album, right? And in the era that we live in of playlists and so on, 2 things. Number one, these were the days where CD took 80 minutes, and so you put 80 minutes of music on it. There's too much music on this album. Yep. And if this album had been better pruned, it would be a much better album. If this album was No Son of Mine, Driving the Last Spike, Dreaming While You Sleep, Fading Lights, and the B-side of I Can't Dance, which is On the Shoreline.
On the Shoreline. Great song. Best song. The best B-side.
That would have been an S or an A tier album for me. Everything else on it, I could pretty much happily not hear again. There's a few songs are okay, but I think it's a shame that really good stuff is sort of outweighed by some not so great stuff. If it had been in the days of where you were limited to 45 minutes of music.
Well, yeah, I mean, Abacab's a perfect example, right? It's 2 sides, very brief. You're in and out. I mean, if they did the same thing with this record, you're right. It might have been different, but as you're skipping along, you're going, I don't like this one. I don't like this one. I don't like this one.
I mean, Jeff's right. I mean, it wasn't only Genesis. Most bands, because, you know, here's a new format. Oh, we've got that much. We've got to fill it. There are so many albums that could be absolutely brilliant, but are probably 5 tracks too long that came out in the 80s, late 80s, and throughout the 90s. Before bands started going, sod it, we just do what we do.
Yeah,
it's not to be discounted that Collins left the band soon after this album. I'm a pop fan, Roy, as much as anyone. I love Howard Jones and Tears for Fears and Nick Kershaw and so on. But this album just left me cold. It was on MTV constantly. That silly video. It just spoiled the band for a while for me. It just did. It took me a while for me to go back to them.
The one cool thing I'll say is the tour on this. They did the medley of Lamb and Musical Box and First and Fifth, which was the one cool thing they were doing at that time, which was like that 25-minute medley, which was super cool. Anyway,
you would go and see Genesis live around this time. Phil would, of course, they'd do a couple of songs, then he'd talk to the audience. Be like, hey, are we going to do some new stuff? And it'd be like, hey. And we do some old songs. Hey! Some new stuff. Hey! And we do some
They knew it, yeah. Right on, they knew. Okay, Nick.
Oh, who's up? Me.
Yep.
Give it to me, Roy. Yes, please.
All right.
Yes, please.
Winner.
Very possibly one of the greatest albums ever recorded in any genre of music, and I'm not exaggerating.
Yep.
It's the band's finest hour. It would be any band's finest hour, hands down. Cinema Show alone just makes this album a masterpiece. It's got a little bit of everything. More Fool Me, with Phil Collins doing his first lead vocal that I'm aware of, was just poignant and beautiful.
Perhaps Some Friends on Nursery Crime.
Perhaps Some Friends. Everybody always forgets that one. Yeah.
Oh right. Oh yeah. Of course. Correct. That's why we've got the experts on here.
That's right.
Of course, Dancing with the Moonlit Night. Nothing like that had ever been done before. Firth of Fifth, it goes on and on. Listen to this album today. It's just unbelievable, astounding. Amazing. And listen to this album today. It was recorded in 1973, probably written in 1972. But you listen to it today, it is as good, as astounding as it was back then in 1973. It's got everything on it, and it is a band at their strident peak, just commanding, and not only creating their own space, but creating a genre, if you ask me. So this is absolutely an S tier, and nobody better argue with me.
No arguments from me.
Yep, well, it's there.
Yeah, that was the one sure. That was the sure one, of course, to go in there. It's just awesome, and you know what else? The production went up a notch with this album. It sounds really clean, even today. It sounds awesome, just great stuff. And again, these are songs that when you see them live perform now, they're still mind blowing. That back half instrumental of Cinema Show, man, that's so good. All right, so this is weird. 2 things we have left here. Let's see.
Here we go.
It's either going to be me wreaking havoc,
there's going to be
Jerry
some
wreaking havoc.
There's going to be some moving stuff around one way or the other here, I think.
That means Jerry gets to wreak havoc.
Jerry gets to just move something around. All right. All right, we got Duke. Is the last actual album here. Is it an S tier, Geoff, or do you want to move something?
Okay, so I'll say for me it's not an S tier album. Again, it's a transition album. Certainly, it was a very significant stride ahead from And Then There Were Three, and recorded at a time when there was a whole load of personal crises and turmoil, particularly in Phil's life. What can you say about an album that has, Turn It On Again, Behind the Lines? I'm sure you guys all know, that a lot of the tracks were initially envisaged as a sort of 30-minute suite, which would have been interesting, but probably wouldn't have, may not have necessarily landed with the general market in the same way. You know, there's so much good stuff on this record. I mean, I think for me it's a really, really strong album, and I think even that 2017 reunion tour where they revisited some of the Duke stuff really kind of brought it up. And I know I didn't see it, but on the recent tour, you know, bringing out Duchess, just phenomenal song.
Great, yeah.
I'm sure that was amazing to hear. So here's what I'm going to do. For me, it is an A-tier album, which gives me the chance to move the Lamb up to S-tier, where it should have been in the first
Jeffrey.
place.
I can always count on you, Jeff.
I told you it'd all work out for you guys.
At least one person agrees with me.
I mean, that's not a bad ranking as it is right now.
That's where it goes.
Let's just go ahead and do the formality of spinning the wheel one last time.
But knowing that Mr. Ewing has the final say.
Yeah, he can move something around. All right, now you can't move everything around, but you can move switch 2 albums if you want. So
you don't have to move anything around. Too.
I'm going to. All right, I'm going to move Nursery Crime up to. Now, this is going to be very contentious, but
do it.
Nursery Crime to top, Lamb drops down to A, Wind and Wuthering to B.
That's it. I'm cancelling my subscription. Just kidding.
Because Nick, I think I clearly rate Nursery Crime as a much stronger record than you do, which is absolutely fine. I think it's a more coherent record overall. It's more coherent than the Lamb. The Lamb is ambitious and it's brilliant in places, but it doesn't completely work. You know, there are going to be people screaming at me now, sacrilege, but there are also going to be people going, he's right. Right?
I love it.
And I think that you know, I mean, those top 3 albums, if you consider that Genesis recorded them consecutively.
Amazing. Yeah.
Right. That's a phenomenal run of proper progressive rock. Right there. You know, I mean, I'm not saying that there aren't elsewhere here, but that's just
Well, Steve Hackett's would agree with you, I think, right? These would be the 3 he'd put up top.
I think he would. I definitely know Selling is his favourite. You know, the way I had it, I'm just having a quick look here. So yeah, that's my top. That was my S. That was my A. I had 2 of B, 2 of C, and D was mine as well.
You know, C is interesting because I actually like Calling All Stations being there. I'm happy with that. Actually, I think a lot of people might have an issue with that being in C, but I like it in C. There,
I think you're gonna have purists not happy that Trespass is in D.
Trespass is below Calling All Stations,
right? You're gonna have You're gonna have people not happy with me for dumping Lamb down to A and moving Nursery Crime up, but
that's fun.
And probably you'll probably also have people tell you that we've got it hopelessly wrong with Genesis and with Invisible Touch as well.
The one thing I can say about you making that move, Jerry, is Hera, Clea, Mante, Gazi, Annie. Because you've moved the album with the giant hogweed.
Well, I mean, the giant hogweed, musical box are absolute genius. And Fountain
Fountain,
probably my favorite Peter Gabriel era Genesis song. So, you know, it's not difficult to see why I'm quite happy rock that one
Yeah, I
up.
don't have an issue. I don't have an issue with that. Again, if you had switched Lamb and Nursery Crime where they are, that's fine too. I just think those 4 albums together, one way or the other, are just, the peak. And,
But,
and
I'm
Trick of the
the
Tail
wild
could have
card.
been in
That's
S
do
too.
something contentious.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So if we were going to order these by row, I think the top row, I think we're okay with in that order.
Yep.
Maybe we'd move Lamb in front of Trick.
I'd probably put Lamb in front of Trick.
And
Yeah,
then
probably.
Wind probably
Yeah.
first, like that.
Absolutely.
How about C? What are you thinking there?
Abacab
Maybe.
possibly at the front.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
say.
And then I think,
And then yeah.
well,
Switch
I mean,
up.
this is we can't dance, yeah, right?
Yeah,
That's
like that.
Yeah.
Like that.
There you go.
I
We
think
did
I'd
it.
put. I think I'd put it in front of Trespass. I think there's enough on it to put it
We
in front
Can't
of
Dance?
Trespass if you've got a CD skipper
That's
in
fighting
your
talk,
hand.
that is.
I think we'll split the difference and leave it there. This was awesome. I knew it would be weird, even thinking exactly how it's gonna go, and it never ever does. Jerry, this was a lot of fun, man. Thanks for doing it. I hope you
It
enjoyed
was
it.
for me. It's great to see you guys, and honestly, I really enjoyed that, Roy. Thanks for asking me.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, we are gonna do a Marillion one. So
I'll count you.
we may have to invite you back to do that, because I know you are absolutely the Marillion expert. I'm going to have to do a lot of studying. There's a big gap of a few albums for me with Marillion, so I got to catch up. But you and Geoff, the 3 of you actually, this may be the same crew for Marillion.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm in.
All right, awesome. We're going to do that.
I just want to say
all right.
thanks for everything you do for Prog, Jerry. Thank you very much.
Right on.
Pleasure. Thanks for the support, because that's just as important from our
and
yeah,
guys,
Oh,
check out
Genesis.
Oh yeah.
check out Prog Magazine. Support them as well, and they follow you on socials and all that. And also check out ProgReport.com. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, our podcast, all that stuff. And enjoy whatever has coming down the way in 2024. We'll see y'all again real soon. Thanks, guys.
Cheers. Thanks very much.
Everybody. See ya. Hey, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us wherever you get your podcast. Check us out on all our socials and on ProgReport.com for all your news, interviews, reviews, and more. And we'll see you again real soon. Thanks.